Okay. Fortunately, there's a lot of contingency for that kind of bit, but I know many people were talking to each other, so I'm probably interrupting really interesting conversations.
No.
I am Fiona Hale. I work at the University of Edinburgh. Can you see everything all right? I'm sorry, my face. I'll see the blue's gone stupid, but I'll message out after. At Fiona M. Hale, anyway. He's absolutely fine to catch me. I am a varying role name at the University of Edinburgh, but at the moment I'm a senior learning advisor, working in a team under a massive change, massive organisational and sectional change, and that's of interest because mostly what I'm about to talk to influenced that change and made that change. And many of the fields I went to, many of the sites I visited, influenced and inspired that change for the team. So I will be talking about that today, and I hope it's of interest to some people in the room that are sitting in these varying roles and where we've landed in Edinburgh. The other thing is I teach on the MSc Digital Education, which was the MSc in e-learning, which some people do know, run by Shannon Bain and Hamish McLeod and Jen Ross up there. I teach about game-based learning in virtual worlds, etc. So teaching on distance programs, and I was supporting distance programs build their courses, build up their masters for 3 years up until the point of what I'm about to speak about, which is this learning design project, which started in March of 2015. I would support them by going visiting them, sitting at a big round table, having massively interesting discussions for an hour and a half. I'd come back. Clearly that's not sustainable or scalable. Our principal, soon to be ex-principal, he's retiring September 2017, Tim O'Shea said, let's have 10,000 students online, postgraduate. Just a number he picked out of the air while probably on sabbatical in Stanford. It was a random number, but it meant for us massive on our scale of our technologies, but massive on our scale of support. What I was doing door to door, which was really interesting and very important, which was having these interesting discussions about assessment and feedback and the technologies, and the virtual learning environment and communities building up online, etc. It just wasn't sustainable or scalable. So Melissa Heighton came to the university. I don't know if many knew her. She's Leeds, Oxford. I've got nods from Oxford, which is good. She arrives and absolutely thinks, let's go visit back down to Diana Larillard, go visit all these different places and see what's happening with the technologies, with learning design. And is it back on the agenda? Is it something we could use for what we're describing these issues? So big money put in by Melissa to fly me out, to send me off to do what I'm about to talk to you. I know some people are toe in the water and maybe exactly where I was in the room as per introductions. I've Skyped with some that wanted to know about this. The report I speak about here is available completely online. It is internal, so excuse the acronyms and the internalness, but that's what it was. One has dreams of making this into something that can be useful externally, and maybe this SIG, this group, might be interested in doing that, because there was a lot I found out by having that opportunity to be bought out and have all my time put into this and visit these sites. So I am aware that disseminating that back into the community is really important, and actually what I did, maybe not how I'm presenting it, but what I found out is really interesting. So we could maybe think about that today. Let that just kind of germinate for the day and think, is there a way to get this out there for the Fiona Hales of March 2015? That's an idea. I'm still working on it, and we're piloting. We're just finished in the evaluation of what we're launching, and already things have moved on so quick, and changes have been brought in. The biggest one being assistant principals in the university, whatever your equivalent is down here, been brought in to look at assessment and feedback and to look at digital education, with Jeff Haywood, our vice principal for digital education, retiring, and the imminent retirement of Tim O'Shea. We're really trying to get these structures in place, like bedded in with finances and resources, because they always seem to find money down the back of the couch. But it's going to be, am I being recorded? I am, okay.
We'll edit that.
The couch is obviously officially out there. I can't defend that. And down the back of the couch, they would find it, and they found millions to put into distance education, and we have had this huge growth in digital education, and the students are up around the thousands. They're not at 10,000, but there's obviously something to be done. Don't switch off if you're not anywhere near distance education or MOOC, please. This is all actually on campus, off campus, UG, PG, CPT, everything I'm talking about today is applicable. And actually the framework we chose, and the framework we have edited since, is applicable across the board, which I have proven in the pilot. So I and others. Just when I say I, just consider it a team behind me. I wanted to be interactive. I refused to speak for 50 minutes. I had a big commute this morning. Never would I live in London, I tell you, with a suitcase as well. It's just rookie stuff, you know. They're looking at me going, really? Suitcase? On the tube? Really? So please interrupt me. Please don't let me talk. Get the hands up and just ask me questions as I go. Ask for clarification. And find me obviously throughout the day if you don't want to be person putting your hands up. Tweet something if it's a question you're thinking of and you don't want to ask it and you want to just hold it, or etc. I'll look at the tweets after. If that works. Introductions were really, really important to me. I made loads of notes about who's in the room, but I think I'll be able to. I've told a few people to, you know, enjoy some time and catch up on some email, because there's definitely a sucking eggs issue in the room for you, Shagmore and Dan, and Laura, and a few others in the room, and Liz Masters as well. So. But I know some people need to know what I did. So I got that chance to go, look, do some scoping, sit at the desk, do some reading, do some internal interviews, and do some field research, as I called it, which was just the generosity of people in the room and outside of the room, especially just opening up their doors for a day, 2 days, just to sit with them, to talk with the academics and the policymakers and the team. So I've met like Jim and Lizette was one of the hosts, Northampton was another host material, and Diana as well. So there was much done. There was much Skyping done as well, of course, and looking to Australia and what they were doing. And the final report emerged. So I'm going to speak about what I did because I think that's important and that's what led to everything else. Then you're looking at evaluating the top UK-based frameworks that I found with the University of Edinburgh, see what we can and can't do against what we knew we wanted. And then now, since then, as you can see, right across today even, you're looking at pilot groups, you're developing what we now call ELDER, Edinburgh Learning Design Roadmap. You get fun, it's coming up with the acronym. I had to follow Carpe Diem at Cairo, I had to follow all these people, but I came up with ELDER, working for now, evaluation design, evaluation again, continual, and then the final development. Right, so find the books, and they're not all there, apologies, and the one that was just obviously published in January, February, with people in the room. It's not on the list because I started earlier than that book arrived, but there's some books there, and it was I was seconded out to our development unit, which was really different. It was just to go and to have that space, which was just really nice to just do some reading and have a think about what was done. What did I learn at my desk? These are references for after, so I expect the slides to be shared. I immediately, read a lot about instructional design, and I want to go away from instructional design quite quickly. A lot of this also came off the back of an ALT talk in 2015, which Jeff Haywood delivered, where he said, I want an instructional designer in every kind of school, etc. And that's kind of started off this morning. But I immediately started looking at just design and pulling it apart from development. And that was really tactical and political on my part, because there are development teams, maybe like the OU, you've got these different teams. There are development teams and implementation teams. There are people that are keeping Learn running. There are people you can pay a lot of money to make interactive content. I wasn't interested in those. I think they'll be the next and the next I could influence. But in scope of project, look at design first. Take it away from development, which really helped. Also, our documentation for Board of Studies specifically talks about these stages when you're going in for course validation: the design, the development, the delivery. And again, that made it quite useful to think I'm only looking at the design for the validation documents for Board of Studies, for creating these courses, reviewing these courses. And yesterday at APT 2016, David McGuire, let me get the name right, I hope David McGuire speaks, and puts up a slide about learning design, which we had a good giggle about. It was great to see it on the board. It was great to see it back in. I don't think a month goes by where I'm not email going, can you help, can you Skype, can you tell me what you're doing? Because it just seems to be, people are beginning to talk about this, thinking about resources, do more with less, thinking about scale, thinking about sustainability, if we can have more of this. But I was with him up to this point, and again on content creation, I kind of stopped because that's not what I or others at our university went with in the end. We're not thinking about content creation, we're trying to get the dialogue and the conversation much away from content creation. And I'll explain that much more. I'm sure you have questions about what I mean. But specifically and quickly, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a doctor or anybody, and I don't work in that area. I am a practical practice person, learning technologist who's meant to do things with people. We have no schedule we have no time in our schedule for research. So reading Goodyear and Dimitriadis, I immediately thought, actually, I don't want to be learning design as the research, as the special project, as this piece that gets a lot of effort, a lot of time, like my 6 months, a lot of money, a lot of space to do something, and then it just cannot be embedded into practice. So that's probably one for a cup of coffee maybe, but I wanted to look at what the Locarno Declaration and others talk about when they talk about learning design practice. Quickly we moved off learning design research and looked at learning design practice. There are schools of education, obviously. There's a School of Education at the University of Edinburgh, and there are development units, and if they wanted to do this, they could, but we wanted to look at learning design practice. I found that a useful distinction early, to think about the embedded practice. Otherwise, you're in the silo of a special project, you get a lot of energy, you get a lot of enthusiasm, you get a lot of money, and then when you get to embedded practice, you don't have the resources, you don't have the people, and it's just not where I wanted to be. The effort then, Keisha is sitting at the back, lots of readings by you with Craft and et al. I'm pretty sure in the references, but the effort of, I've used this quote yesterday, tomorrow, on the street, all the time. It is not the effort of delivering content, it is the designing of learning experiences. And I didn't know he was going to be here today, so I'm a little bit like overwhelmed. Anyway, so I've already gone down to the back corner and sharpening his knife. He told me, very supportive, I really like that, I really like that. Anyway. Refocus the effort from the delivery of content. So I don't know, in the room, August the 30th, you get that email going frantic, I'm launching next week from an academic, put my stuff online, put my stuff, lecture 101, week 101, week 301, it's just, what does that even mean? So it's just content. The VLE becomes that repository of content, and it doesn't become anything what you dream of when you're having your design workshops and everything's going well. So just not the delivery of stuff, the designing of learning experiences. I've got another quote in a minute, which I'll talk about. We've got another policy at Edinburgh now. Academic is techno-pedagogical designer, and the support staff is facilitator. I am absolutely definitely going to talk about that, because that absolutely is to do with why our team has all these changes now at this moment, and we're undergoing just this massive shift. And then, of course, desk research tells me there is not one definition of learning design from door to door, from thing to thing. Instructional design, learning design. The language is different. People think it's one thing. People think it's another thing. I'm working on maker spaces at the moment, and that's another like maker, and everyone just thinks of something. Learning design is the exact same. They switch off because they would think instructional design, or they would switch off because they're like, I would do that forever. It was just learning sciences, learning design, etc. I'm not the researcher. I just needed a working definition to say what was I talking about when I'm talking about this. What do I think it means? So come from Beetham and many more you could put up here. You start with this, but immediately it goes into the delivery and talks about supporting delivery. And again, I wanted to be kind of distinct in design and to support that. And I wasn't convinced ICT-based tools would be the answer. This is 2008, so, but anyway, I wasn't convinced it would be tools and technology. I thought the thinking had changed, but it mightn't have been needed to be technology. And actually, it ended up being very independent of technology. So the other one was to kind of put up what I thought content design was, which is that process of designing and developing and writing resources for the course, and move to learning design, which is adapted from everybody, and this is what we worked with. Planning, structuring, sequencing, the design of learning experiences. Facilitated activities in the workshops that we run. Pedagogically informed, of course, there's enough out there, I don't need to produce it. And make it explicit. They know what they're doing and why they're doing it. They're making choices. They've never done that. They have to vocalize why they're doing what they're doing. And make better use of technologies in the teaching. It doesn't come in as the actual all end. I don't even get the laptop out most of the 2 days, but it just makes better use. It's all embedded. That's a work in progress after, because it doesn't say enough about what I want to say about assessment and feedback as well. But it's a work in progress. I've already just talked about that. I don't know if you have this as well. You've got the learning design as the noun, the object, and then you've got the product, which is the product of what you do. But you also have the learning design process. So again, I need to pull out. I was talking about the process and the reuse of that, and the scalability and the structure of that. I wasn't speaking about the learning design as a noun, as a thing that people could pick up and use in history or archaeology or art or whatever. I was thinking much more of the process. Okay, you can't see this, which is such a pity, because the idea was I'd have printed this off and brought it. Immediately from the desks and coming out from interviews that I was running came this idea of these kind of P, the letter, areas. Somebody just keep me to time, by the way. I'll just keep talking. P. Policy. Should it be mandatory? Should it be optional? Should it be, it will have a massive shift in culture. The process, the workflow, the performance, I found a massive issue around evaluation and impact. I know people were saying that that's what they've been doing, but of course I've got funders who are asking me about what impact this has. So performance, the platforms, the packs, the toolkits, those things that people were using, be it like paper bases. The OU has a lot of the packs and the toolkits and the cards, or was it going to be on the platform like Learning Designer? Then you've got people. People is massive. That's like thinking about the benefit and the stage of readiness and the culture change this requires, the staff development this requires for people to come on a workshop like this to get engaged with it. That's a massive one for people. The people as in my team, my section, who we are and what we could do. So all of that idea was kind of marinating around. Thinking of the students, of course, co-creation is the buzzword, they co-create and then everything's fine. All of these are not massive change. And the other one would be kind of the patterns, the gallery of the good designs, like pedagogical patterns. So I'm not even going to pretend to speak about that, I'm sure we talked about this actually. So there's many more P's in there, the process, the product, the practice. These really did help me. That mind map on the wall did help to kind of frame the interviews, which were very informal. Interview a lot of people internally. I find that they don't want silos. They don't want me to bring in some framework that's for online and on campus or over there, and they don't want on campus. They don't want silos, as in I would run it centrally from information services where I work, and the educational development unit would be over there. There'd be no signposting, there would be no coordination. Just no silos for this. Collaborative development and service, like we'd all develop it together and it would become a thing we had resourced well and something that was offered. And that the process was not isolated, it was embedded. That means that I'm speaking with registry all the time and the board of studies and the directors of teaching network that we have and the deans of learning and teaching, and thinking about this process embedded in what they do as one of the stages they do, even still keeping it optional, like I mentioned. And reward and recognition. I don't know about you, but we have massive issues. Of course, I'm going to mention it. NSS, assessment and feedback, and teaching. We're a massively strong research institution, not so strong on learning and teaching. People ask for reward and recognition for this, and so points have helped for Edinburgh Teaching Award, which is the Higher Education Academy piece. But also for the staff, for me and for others, what are we getting out of it? So that was a real focus. We're doing carrot, not stick, on the whole strong encouragement of going. Fortunately, I was mentioning yesterday to some colleagues, I don't have to go into the fusty corners if it's not mandatory to find the lecturers that don't want to be there. I can just have those that want to be there queuing up to go on this. And the queue is out the door, and I have 21 programs already gone through this only in a few months, and a massive number in queue. So strong encouragement is fine. And I mean strong encouragement from the top down. Strong encouragement to go on this, for it to be mentioned as much as possible, but for it not to be mandatory. Changes it completely. And then the evaluation, not to be cheap KPIs, which information services is ran on. Again, I get reported, but they know my feelings on this. It just can't be 21 tick. What does that mean? It has to be deep and meaningful, and that, I have to admit, as I stand here, is the biggest issue for me for evaluation. October 2015, you run a workshop. January 2017, that course launches. NSS scores are 2018. Any results from students or how it was done is years off. Or you get a lot of noise as you develop, as you deliver, and you can't tell what was the design to the actual end point. So deep and meaningful, the dream, and what I've just had announced is I'm getting like a PhD intern in to help a little bit on that deep and meaningful. Cheap KPIs will keep some bosses happy, but they don't mean anything. 21 courses. I prefer to have 5 great courses and 100 courses go through this.
Fiona, sorry, can I ask you on that point of the fact that you say that the NSS results won't be that far, and clearly there's drivers for improvement now.
Sorry, yeah.
Do you feel that was a difficult burden? People wanted solutions now and thought that was what you may be providing, rather than actually know this is going to be a longer term game.
So
How
the
did you
people
manage
that are
that?
on that, the course leaders and program leaders, understand that it's not about what you just said. The higher uppers got it. So there was one that it was designed in February, March. It was delivered as quick. It was already in, and that's like the lead time on that's been nothing. It's been so quick, a 5-week course, and that's really interesting. And this other one is much longer. But actually, they know what I'm saying when I say NSF scores are way off, and it has its issues anyway in TEF. But it would be hard to say that this workshop has a detrimental effect.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to say it has a positive effect when it's that far off. So I have people high up understanding. I have masses on qualitative data, beautiful quotes, happy people, and those to show you on the pay it forwards that we're doing. So on that, it's strong. But on, you know, the student experience and those tick boxes at the back, you've got to be patient, which is very hard for people who are resourcing you. And resourcing you. So certainly don't have this exact solution, but we're working on that, and I have good support. I'm just lucky right now with the assistant principals just getting it. They know, and I think actually hopefully this will help a little bit. Isolated academics. So when you interview them, they were always just gaps in the diary. No wonder they email you in August. They're looking at it in August. They're looking at it on that last day. Going, content. They're isolated. They're doing it in gaps in the diary, and they don't really think about design. They can tell you about a design after, like it happened. That would be my design, but not at the time. So when we go from isolated academics, I wanted them to think more about doing it in a team, doing it collaboratively, doing it with that kind of support, and not isolated. And they immediately saw the benefit of that. So that was a huge win. Just realised I went over the people's time too quick. Sorry. Externally, I went around and visited with Diana, Institute of Education, UCL, Imperial, Northampton, Leicester University, the unit that closed down there. I got really lucky to interview with Therese Bird. Julie Salmon had already moved on, but that unit that got, Ronnie Canola, I think his name was on for a while. Anyway, they all moved on, and the centre was closed. So actually, of all the external institutions, that was probably the most interesting Skype in a way, because I learned so much about why they were closed down. I quote not one person's opinion, but actually she was the equivalent of me, so I needed her opinion, really, not what probably happened. And the Open University, and Joanna Wild, who's working with Diana and others, and those various roles, every field space let me talk to not only those that are doing it, but those that have had it. So like the academics and the staff developers and the managers and the developers and the tool developers, etc. And that was just very generous for their time. And that list could be way longer. Obviously, you could go forever, but you have to stop somewhere. So looking at that and thinking about the closed Centre for Learning Innovation, and then thinking about job descriptions specifically in other institutions and who they are. Lizette's team, I'm sure when you went around the table, it was a teacher, HR, and something else. There's nobody going, I'm a learning technologist or a designer. You know, where in Northampton, you do have very big distinctions between Northampton. There you are. You've used distinctions between learning technologists and learning designers. And I've seen both, and I've seen both job descriptions. It's graded differently. It's all very different. But I'm sitting with so job descriptions and those distinctions. I was really interested in that for the team I had. And then I find kind of the leading ones, and we start thinking about evaluating those. So I think I might just skip over the next few slides, thinking about time, so we can get more questions. So when I was talking about the academic, I mentioned this yesterday. Amy Collier and others do loads of work from Stanford. Now she's east somewhere. I'm sorry, I can't remember the institution. About unbundling of the academic, that kind of the CD, the album, and the music track being pulled out, and now it's by track, not by CD. They feel the same about the academic. When years ago I started in 1999 teaching, I would have been all things to the student: pastoral and counselling and learning technologist and an academic and that seems to be unbundled a bit, pulled out and pulled apart. So the academic does email the learning technologist and become very reliant on them. But I was trying to fix a few things, but that one was of real interest to me. I needed the academic to own their learning design, to own what was the output of the workshop, to really feel it was them that came up with it. It's not mine. I can't, I'm objective there. So I really liked that one again, Warcraft. But anyway, that techno-pedagogical designer, stop with the I don't know that stuff. I don't, just that flippant kind of thing that some people say. It's just not true. If you're doing it by learning experience design, it's not content. If you're doing it not of the technologies but of the learning design, you know way more than me, and it's your discipline, and you can do this. So position the academics as the supported learning designers, and position the learning technologists as the facilitator. This is really important if you are running these teams and thinking about these spaces. These leaky learning technologists. I had people in my own unit, 12 people. I had 32 around the schools. Why wouldn't I be using those to do what I'm trying to describe? So the question comes, do you want to hire 2 learning designers? I'm not a learning designer. Or would you like to try and train them up? So we start moving them, and we start thinking of CMALT, and we're going to hope to be the largest university running CMALT through. We think about the Edinburgh Teaching Award, which is what we run for HEA accreditation, and make sure the workshop is points. We make sure that the people in the schools become the facilitators of what we're describing. They start running it. And I'm passionate about what I'm talking about because it positions the learning technologists away from the professional services, or whatever you call them in your university, and over into the academic strands. They're at the academic table finally, and they're given that voice early in the design. And it makes it much more efficient and effective through development and delivery, because there's no loss. There's no loss of what happened. They were there and active, making the decisions about what they should be doing, rather than just being told it's PebblePad, make it work. I'm not bring up PebblePad, I don't know why. Anyway, so it is supporting the teachers and managing all of that, and just making sure that they move away, as in this unit that I run, moves away from the focus on development and delivery of stuff and become a supporter of the design of learning experience for students. And that's related to them teaching on courses, teaching on the postgraduate certificate academic practice, or whatever your equivalent is. They're there at those places when there's 32 academics on the course. They're speaking those languages. They had that definitely they had the skill to be these people. They just needed to go on some courses and just do a little bit of this and just start doing it. The first time I storyboarded, I told us that yesterday, I was doing it in front of people. You can't practice all this stuff. You just have to kind of do it with shadowing and with somebody looking at you for quality, but really and truly just position them at the academic table. And then you get your wee army, which isn't the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. You finally aren't just Fiona running these, you have people running them. So position them as the facilitators and have them from schools, from Central, and from the Educational Development Unit. And then think about performance and impact. And this is where I was talking about this PhD intern to develop frameworks for evaluation of the process and the impact, and maybe even the product, obviously. Build a structured framework for each level. So Dalziel talks about the difference between evaluating the learning design as an abstract set of activities independent of the learner. So you're evaluating the thing, but it hasn't actually been active yet, versus the learning design implemented with a specific group of learners and evaluating it live. So that's quite interesting, but I don't have that enough practice rules. I'm hoping I'll get inspiration today from everyone. And reuse, dissemination, and community practice. Making sure that we're going around our university and thinking about and coming to events like this and thinking about that reuse of process and product. And that's definitely a huge focus. Themes are emerging from every workshop, from every challenge. So going into a workshop, you meet with the course and you say, what are your design challenges? What are your biggest issues? It might be the external examiner has fed back and wants you to change something. Students say X, the VLE's discussion board is empty, 10% for engagement on a discussion board, we need to change our assessment and feedback. We've got 22 learning outcomes when we should have 5, where it's really just a list of stuff to do, stuff to learn. Depending on the theme, the challenge. For Northampton, when I met with Julie and her team there, they are going to Waterside, and they have a blended campus. They have one lecture theatre. That's their design challenge on the board. I'm so jealous of one design challenge on the board. It's such a good focus. But I do bespoke workshops where we speak to each team, but themes are emerging. So kind of consistently around assessment and feedback, and consistently around maybe the pace of the course. It's an MSc clinical education. It's online. It's at a distance. They log in every few weeks. They have 2 hours put aside. They need to know what they're doing. A weekly kind of unfolding of the work is not going to work for them. So pacing workload, assessment, feedback. They were given a course that's already validated. They need to go to revalidation. There's loads of themes anyway for the challenges, but the structure chosen can match all of those. So it's really, yes.
I just want to ask about those design challenges because we've got quite a few as well, but actually they tend to be generally the same.
Yeah.
Just they keep on reappearing.
Yeah.
There might be 10, and we come to one workshop, and there might be 3 out of those 10, and then the next time there's another 3. But we sort of heard most of them already. Is that what you find?
I am definitely finding that. There's a few that they might voice it differently, but you're getting there. But the same structure works. But because of the flexibility of the framework, which I am going to talk about, it allows you to focus in on something. So if they have these learning outcome issues, sometimes they need to do some free work. Actually, they need to go down to the development unit and do some free work, because there's only so much I can achieve in a workshop. And the learning outcomes has been a big one. 5 learning outcomes, it's massive. It doesn't have to be 5, it can be less than 5, but it has to be only at least maximum 5. Assessment feedback is a huge one. But the review, I mean, there's a review at the moment. They're moving from all these bespoke VLEs that we have. We're that university with 23 VLEs. Yay! Blur, Moodle, and everything else bespoke. It's just code-based. But they're moving, and they decide on movement. They will take their core first-year postgraduate core course there and look at the design. And with that, you get them into the course. So they're transitioning. Instead of just migrating all the content, which most people they would do, they're actually looking at redesign. So there's often review things. The VLE is kind of quiet. The external has commented, but actually I've done it more on development of courses than review of courses. And the development of course is just, they mightn't have a challenge. They just have, I'm developing a course. So that's the challenge. So you're absolutely right. I haven't had the opportunity because I'm still actually piloting. I just did one. I'm about to do others. To pull out those themes. So that would be the reuse, I think, would be that. Not the output, but that kind of input design challenge. Which I think helps probably let you focus and make sure you get some of the stages right. Some of the design challenges mean that you need to focus in on some of the stages more than others. That's what I'm finding anyway. If it's about learning outcomes, that stage needs to be absolutely rock solid and allowed loads of time. If it's about the pace and the workload, and then you make sure your storyboard gets time. I make sure you get a half a day, day 1, and a half day, day 2. All these slides will be available, and I'll email them out. I'll tweet them out just after this. But in summary, they look like this. And you got Northampton, you got OULDI, you got the ABCs and the Arena down UCL, Institute of Education, Imperial. Imperial gone on that list. I've probably cropped it stupidly, sorry. But this is the other one as well I should have mentioned. There's kind of this big, wider view of the program and where you're going with the mission and the look and feel, or you can get right into the content. So for Imperials, in what I thought I learned anyway, you were right into the content, like the visual, of the professional course that you were running, right into the kind of things they needed to know. And I needed to come out to a bit of a broader view so that it could move to program level, but it could go right in. So there's different ways of looking at it, these toolkits, and all are either available online or to purchase, but most are CC BY. So in the case of the OE in Cairo, it's building on OULDI and Carpe Diem, and it felt like the best of breed. There's researchers around that area. The elements were CC BY. So long story short, Cairo came out as the one we wanted to edit and change and purchase, but evaluation, there's a queue. But in the evaluation, the only way to evaluate tools like this is to use those tools, to get them into a workshop with courses and use them. So we did that. And again, I had to pick 4, but I could have picked 10 different programs. They were really interested in being part of it. Good venue and catering helps as well. But undergraduate course, that's going to be the first online in the university, undergraduate. Joint CPD course between some schools, staff development, which was our own team, which Lizette was up for, and the online postgraduate course here as well, which was another Cairo. At that stage, Cairo was emerging, which actually just uses the OU toolkit mostly, so it's not a matter of which one. As such, it was really important to get the one to suit Edinburgh. At this stage in Cairo, Julie was great because she allowed us to start editing our own and beginning to discuss our own kind of emerging framework. So that's why. But this is what we're going with. So we are at Edinburgh Learning Design Roadmap. It expertly combines all of these things, which is the more on craft work. It looks at pedagogy, theory, subject knowledge, and practical experience. Qualitative data shows that they have not really had the space to have these conversations. They've definitely not had them as more than one brain, as in collaboratively, and they haven't had a place where they've learned the theory or talked about the theory or had these opportunities to speak and practically do something with this. So PGCAP, Postgraduate Certificate of Academic Practice, which I teach on, all this, it's all what to do now, it's all tough. They go back a couple of weeks later, they can't remember what they're going to do. This is talk and action and done. So they just loved that. And the practical experience and the subject knowledge comes from them. And the technological know-how is only in the background. It's not like, stop, let's pedal, let's learn, let's move. It's only in the background. You're just kind of holding it on and trying to guide them a wee bit. But you have to allow that innovation in all those spaces and let them take risks, especially on a review. I actually just start with a blank sheet on review, not like these are your learning outcomes that edit them. Blank sheet, because they don't reach far enough. They'll constantly go down the loop of, well, what we do now is this, but you'd like to, no, just what would you like to do? Because that really was an issue on the very first pilot we ran. We lost a whole day. They were so good to us to come back second day. The whole first day was doing it wrong, really doing it wrong. They weren't going on to they weren't reaching far enough. They weren't away from the current course enough. And they were great to come back. And I knew I had my work cut out the next day, but we got it. But it was because we just took a blank sheet, and just start again. So treat reviews almost like a new course, but have that kind of VLE back-end analytics and the external comments and student comments in your background. So Elder looks, everyone knows these ones. This is kind of Carpe Diem mixed with Cairo, mixed with whatever, and it's kind of what Elder got. This is Elder. And the biggest one I want to point out as a difference is stage 2, where we actually make it a stage and hold. For Northampton, when they were up with Julie, not enough was done around assessment and feedback for me, because it's the huge push in our university is assessment and feedback. And the assistant principal doesn't want to just tacked on at the end, oh, I must assess. She wants it like right through the process at all times, thinking about it. So we made that an actual stage rather than part of stage 1. Look and feel is the OU cards, which are excellent and available and CC BY and all out there. That is just excellent. That, for me, is more than the learning outcomes, I have to say. Look and feel cards is what I'm thinking about the most when I'm storyboarding. Look and feel cards, I'll come back to this, don't worry. There's happy faces at the end with theory and practice. Yeah. No, it's not there. Okay, so this one. So stage 2, like I mentioned, is all about beginning with the learner in mind, beginning with the end in mind. We use informal language, so I am talking about learning outcomes, but I'm not wheeling out the SCQF too much. So the handle on the head, they totally switch off. It's painful. And I realize I'm not working. Learning outcomes isn't my job, and it's a painful process. And the SCQF level 11s and etc. Mostly I just get asked, why don't you just give me the 5 I need? Just tell me what the 5 are. But informally, we do say, what do you want the learner to be able to do? And that just is to speak. And we get 3, 4, 5 things. And how does the learner know that they're getting there? And that's the feedback. So what you want the learner to be able to do becomes the learning outcomes. But in the workshop, it stays informal. It's 5 things. They can formalize it after with the development unit, but it stays informal. And how do they know they're getting there? They being the students. So feedback for me is often about me knowing how the student's doing. But if you look at feedback from the point of view of the student, how did they know? How did they know? It doesn't have to be a formal assessment or anything. It just needs to. Have you put in points, little pulse points, little markers and triggers for them? It might even be input from the tutor. It could just be peer support. But how did they know they're getting there? But that's been the biggest change, putting in stage 2, pulling it out from the mission and just thinking about that. So I could go on about that one forever. We do still have SCQF in the background. You can look at it after, but it's tough. It's like a program director going for 20 years hadn't even heard of it, in the university. But it was the theory and practice. It's embedded, like I said, and it's that space for conversation. So this color up there is not great, sorry, but you'll see the differences of color at least. Yellow being the assessment, it's all the way through. It's all the way through assessment and feedback. It is your, instead of just write 10,000 words, end of postgraduate course, it's constantly like you're drafting the piece here, then they're commenting on it with some input from the blue, peers are commenting, you're doing something else, you're going through like that. This was the largest workshop I had run. It was just 14 people for one course. It was crazy, but that's what you learn in the pilot. It's just like, that's a bit too many, but we got there. I think they described me as a Rottweiler. I think it was a compliment. I'm going to take it as a compliment. Because they had NHS education, they had the Queen's Institute, they had some students in there, district nurses, 2 the learning technologists in the school, myself and the person training up, and the school librarian. It was a lot, but it was just such a beautiful course. And they had issues. They had a 5-week teach, 6-week placement, 1-week assessment, and they needed it to be seen as one rather than so. Hardest, but probably the most rewarding. And the support staff as facilitators have run a treat because they go back to the school and they pay it forward. They start running these in their school. And that puts the learning technologist as that kind of facilitator role and keeps them at the academic table. And so far, 5 are back in their schools running these, and I'm running them. I've got 2 staff almost ready to run them. They need a bit more kind of shadowing, as Lizette mentioned yesterday, like shadowing. I think I'm going to take some questions soon. You'll have seen these, right? Learning, the storyboard is one of the stages. Takes the most work, which is there. Then it becomes the digital version. We just use Poppet. You could use anything. It looks like that. That's one course, and it's only a 10-week course. And you can focus in and look and keep the same coloring and stuff like that. This is the one I wanted to share earlier. I thought the slides are in the wrong order, but these are the look and feel cards. If you haven't seen them, certainly everyone has seen them. But they look like this. But speaking with Rebecca and Lizette, take them, edit them, change them. They're CC by, give their attribution clearly. But move on, make them the way you want it. Because in some of them, it's like online and accessible, and you just do that as a given. And not always do they have what you need, so you're tearing post-its and pushing it on top. And this one, for instance, is one of my favorite ones, which is this active reflective learning. They had to put down loads, just self-discovery and active. But if they don't like what the card says, they can edit it. And this is my favorite part of it, I'm just saying that, because it's what they speak about when they say no, maybe, and yes. It tells you how the team's going and while they're working. And then no, they can't just... don't do this before a coffee break, by the way, because I did it before a coffee break, and I said we only got just there to start flinging cards. So I thought, we'll stop that, we'll have our coffee, and we'll come back. So no, the maybe, and then the yes. And the yes, you're meant to get them down to such a number. But that's your storyboard almost, like what this looks and feels. So you want to spend time on that one. On the left is the example of a mission statement. You do it in groups. Separately, you come together, and that's the shared vision. The learning technologist, the librarian, and everyone else has been together doing it. So that's the one I was saying about the online undergraduate course. That's the kind of pitch on the street, and that's the first thing you do, and that lets you know who's in the room and how it's going to work and how they are together or not. This was the hardest with the community nurses for 14 people. A lot of opinions, a lot of difference of opinions. Policymaker with all the way down to the student who's on, but we got there. We spent ages on this. But actually it was well worth the time. You can't really move on very well if you're not confident that the stages are complete. But the framework is flexible. It's across 2 days, but can end after a day and a half. It's across 2 days. It can lead even on from that. You can do way more on the storyboard. Like I mentioned, it can take a whole day if you needed to. You can take it down. I've rarely actually, hands on heart, got to, what's the other one? Sorry. I've rarely got to that and that. 4, 5, and 6, actually prototyping in the VLE, actually building this stuff. But I have always done stage 1, 2, 3, and 7 action plan. What are you doing next? Who's doing what? Who's building what? What's the librarian promise? You have to do an action plan to know where you're going. And this one, like I mentioned, is just for the personal reflection reward. But it's actually hard to fit this in, if it's a 12-week course, if you're spending time on storyboard. But they're absolutely fine with that because you've introduced them to the learning technologists who will help them continue on building, etc. Just be alright for time limit for discussion there.
I think so.
Yeah, that'd be good. I think that was it. It was just kind of selling the whole learning technologist as facilitator was coming up. Going to their away days, pitching what we do. Ask this optional reason. If it's not mandatory and in the paperwork and you need to spread the word, we've been at away days, we do bespoke fairs for people, we try and position ourselves, not running Learn and not building content in Learn, but just between the academics and ourselves, we're moving. This is the shift I mentioned about the team. This is a very difficult shift. They're on postgraduate certificate for digital education or academic practice or trying to get their HEA accreditation and speaking new language. So instead of hiring learning designers, we're moving the learning technologists this way, but it is working. The language, they're more confident in what they're saying. They are getting to the academic table in schools, which is really important. They're running through CMALT as well, and they're just running these kind of fairs. So this is a lovely one. We've got these cards. I just, my colleague, Philip wrote these in. It's just beautiful, speaking their language and away from. And then, of course, as I said, 32 distributed people with 32 different job titles. So it's hard to find the people, but once you find them, in this example, they really are enthusiastic for helping the course and helping the team, and it makes it much more efficient, as we found, and effective on the development and delivery. That's the CMALT. I think that was it. Yeah. So I have some questions as I go, but you must have more questions now. That was kind of a run through about Elder, and like I said, you can't really learn about the toolkit, you just have to do it. So when you came up to do the evaluations, they were running it with teams, and when we have wanted to know what showing people, we asked them to run it. We have tried, I should have said this, 2 things. We have tried to do it with a mix in the room. with a kind of a made-up scenario of course to build, and it just doesn't work as well. You need to have, this is part of the pilot, right? The evaluation is a trial. Because although they might see the framework as you've just seen it on the board, they don't get it. They're not using it on a course. It's not like a real course. They're not getting their hand into a course that they're going to be delivering in a month, So that didn't work. And we've had Julie Salmon at our university for a couple of days, just gone in June, on the issue of on the issue of resources, and people feeling not confident with taking over and it all just being on me, in Central. The one suggestion that Julie had was that she runs 23 pods in a room with herself at the front, Carpe Diem. And, this is online if you want to look for it. And she is the kind of the quality running person of the groups. And in each pod, as called, there's 23 of them, there is the course, a learning technologist, and a librarian. And the same again, the same again, the same again. And from MOOC all the way up to postgraduate, that's how she does them. I'm not doing it that way, but the one thing I thought was interesting, which we're doing in August, is to do one with 4 pods. So that my staff can get confident to run them themselves. And the librarian is there. And they're all I'm doing it all postgraduate, all level 11, all online, so they get that kind of common, but they will get cross-disciplinary feedback from each other because you draft in common. So that's the one thing I'm trying, which is a lot different to what I've done. So I might just be coming back in a month and telling everyone that just did not work. But I am interested to see it because I think on resources it might be an interesting solution. But not 23 pods, especially with the back. Sorry.
So
it might be the same.
at what stage should the person then go to the content developers? Do they go with your package and say what you think it's
Yeah, it depends on the school. The action plan helps for building up who's doing what when. But actually, I could show you some action plans. It's mostly on the course leader. That makes me smile. Nicely, they're supported, but I want it to be their action. They're building the content now themselves with the learning technologists. So we don't have that kind of idea in what we're doing out of Elder of then it's not yours and you're going to hand it over. That handover you just mentioned, I don't want that to happen. I want them to stay with it. Okay, it does, yeah. Not for the people I've had through my door yet, but I am a bit spoiled. Like I say, I have a queue who want to do this enthusiastically. If it was mandatory and the motivation would change, there would be a lot more like kind of equality, diversity training feeling. It'd be like that. So I'm a little lucky. If they make it mandatory, I would just die. They're not saying they will, but like in a year or two, if I ran out of people and I had to go into the torch corners, I think you will have a lot more of that. These people who just think. I'm very tired of it just being like this content repository and a learning technologist being a thing. I wasn't joking about the roles. They're fixing the web, they're fixing the projector, and they're, we have all that issue. But I am absolutely trying to get them into that position of academic practice right there beside them. And the academic, they'll meet with them and they'll build it with them. Most of the actions are on the academic, but they don't seem to mind because they know who to go to. It's almost matchmaking. You're like, that's your librarian. That's your learning technologist. There's somebody central. So it's working. Does that help? It's just
we've got a team that basically say, oh, there you go, work your magic.
Yeah, work your magic. Yeah, no.
We do want that. I have communication with the academics.
Sure. Sure, I know. No, they're there. They're making the kind of decisions with them. So they've influenced those decisions as well. So there's been a bit of an astute play on their part because they know now what's coming. But instead of I'm using Learn and Pebblepad, it's more like they know what the student has to do, why, and why are they doing it that way in the learner experience? Like what is happening here? What are we trying to orchestrate? And they build it that way, and they're really informed about why because they were there when the decision was made. But I have had is that quizzy enough question, and it's just ridiculous. Work your magic with a day to go. It doesn't, it's just. You had a question, was that, and then there was another one.
No, I just want to say that we have done this with several groups in the room.
Oh, right, okay, good.
Yeah, and it sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't. It really depends whether I think there is a benefit to the groups to be in the room together.
Thank you. So she's doing with 23 minutes. Talk about what I think might work for the evaluation. I haven't done it. Here's what I said. They're all postgraduates. They're all level 11. They're all online distance. But the 4 in August are going to be family medicine, pain management, drug discovery, and some course to be titled in divinity. You think they've got nothing, but they do. They're postgraduate level 11 distance. That's a start. They all want to be there, great. And the cross-disciplinary work, they do a draft as a storyboard now on their pod. And they walk over to yours and they just start putting stuff on it. And then they walk back to their own, hopefully with the implement. I don't know. You're getting it like hot off the presses, and I'll know more at the October meeting. I don't know if this is going to work, but resources-wise, I'm enthusiastic about it. And people are interested in sitting there and doing this. And I think, yeah, anyway, there was 3, okay, you just put your
No, wait,
somebody help me put it down. You and then Isha, and do, and then you
Thanks. You raised a really important and interesting issue of evaluation. So it's inviting you to say anything and yeah, how you've laid out the stages and so on. And there are ways that you can get people in those sorts of workshops to think about how they think the results could be evaluated, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to invite you to give us some your current thinking and what you could. I mentioned a PhD intern.
I know that sounds a bit flip. We actually do a lot of student hiring. We use student interns that are students in the uni, and we do a lot of work with PhD interns. They're an excellent resource to use. I use them all the time. Use word is the wrong word, but you know what I'm trying to say. They're really interested in the area. They're actually down in School of Education. And they're going to just work with me. They've got 6 hours a week is all they're allowed to do legally by the system. But that is, they are working on it anyway in their that's what we normally get. I'm really astute when I'm advertising for PhD interns. I've had 4 now. I go straight to the supervisors going, you must have students looking at this. And they're either looking at it or they've just done it and they're excellent resource. So yeah, ideally it's an actual research fellow or somebody else maybe, but actually I shouldn't have said ideally. Normally, you might look for somebody in the development unit or in the School of Education to do it, or you would be it, but I'm not. They're expensive, nobody's got any time anymore to do anything. Although we're interested, I just need practical kind of solutions to what I need, and PhD intern has proven, the last 3 I've had, that they're a solution to this issue. But I'm going to be looking to everyone around the framework, because I haven't got that solved. Really, genuine, I don't have that. I have a lot of things I keep saying to you over coffee, but I'm not going to stand in front of. Well, I'm going to stand in front of researchers. I'm not a researcher, really, truly. I think the VLE, there'll be something about analytics at the back where you can compare. If it's a review, you can say your challenge was that there was no engagement on your discussion board. Hopefully, it's not a discussion board that they're using then after my elder, and it'll be something much more interesting. And then you can have some comparisons, but you can't between. I will over coffee if that's right. That's just a flip answer, Andrew. It's just. I know who's in the room and it's not me to answer that one. Okay. Isha had a question, there was one over here. What time is coffee?
Yeah, it's basically, once we've done those 2 questions, then I think we need to.
Yeah, because we're here all day talking about all this stuff. Okay, Isha.
Andrew still half my question.
Okay.
So I'll take the other half over coffee.
You do the other half. Well,
I just want to say I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you. That's nice.
Clever. I've tweeted one for you about over-assessment. So we'll respond to that outside if that's all right.
What was your question? Oh yeah, it was about having multiple groups in the room. We found that working with groups on a common program, different modules of the program, that worked really, really well. Because they get a chance to sort of cross thing between what you call pods, we call them tables, that sort of thing. It can actually work. We've done some with different modules from different programs working together in it. It can work. It depends on the support, obviously, for that. But if you've got enough people around about to support them, so because the problem with all these things is how do you get enough academics in the room at one time? I'm sure you have the same. Or maybe you don't, but we have this problem getting people just in a room.
I don't right now.
Oh, great.
And also, I refuse to do one without the program director in the room. Because it means nothing.
Oh yeah, we always do
that.
that.
You have a mission statement for the program you're running, a module that was just handed to you.
Absolutely.
I refuse to run two courses they can get through, and I've worked with them for years, and I was just really sorry for them, but they have no buy-in from the program director. These are issues I can't solve. But if they're not in the room, even just for the first half day, I've had program directors obviously only be able to put aside the half day morning on the first day, but that's almost enough actually to say what is the mission statement of the program, what's the look and feel of the program, and then your course within that. Having these courses, because also read the work of Susan Ryan right now, who's at our university. She is speaking about the issue being at program level around assessment and feedback. So if I'm solving a wee little module down here, it's not going to have the impact. She wants it at program level. And she doesn't want the assessment and feedback just on and thought after. She knows that the best ideas around assessment and feedback in a badly designed course is just you're all hiding to nothing. You had a question and then.
Yeah, no, just observation from Sheila.
Okay.
From Glasgow
Hi,
Council.
Sheila.
So they're using a version of Carpe Diem
Yeah.
as well.
I know, I should go through.
Yeah, but also a question from Leanne saying, how influenced is your process on Carpe Diem?
How influenced is
How
mine?
influenced is
You'd
it
have
by?
to, Northampton need to comment on Carpe Diem, because Ali Amberlini went to Northampton
Yeah,
with
Ali's
Carpe Diem,
Yeah.
changed it. She thinks that they're doing a lot more work about learning outcomes than Carpe Diem does.
Mhm.
When I asked Julie about learning outcomes specifically in the workshops,
Yeah.
that it was a painful process, it was hard, she doesn't do them. There's no learning outcomes in Carpe Diem. There's nothing about learning outcomes. You come in with them, or your action is to do them. She doesn't deal with it. That's the biggest stage. Ali brought it to Northampton, and I've continued with it. I've added more on assessment and feedback as well. Does that work? I think that's the question. So Carpe Diem to me, and it's new and it's on the pack if you want to buy it, is online, is no learning outcomes. It's just no, you have them, you either bring them with you ready, or an action at the end of Carpe Diem is to look at them and change them, but you don't even read them out. You don't even have a stage in there. It is none, I can't remember how she put it. I won't quote her. Anyway, it's just no. But learning outcomes is in Northampton's Cairo,
Right, okay.
as it is at the OU.
We expect them to bring it with them.
Do
But
you?
I think also our learning outcomes of 300 or 600 hours of learning, so it's very different.
We do it by number as well. Like it's 200 and something for a level, whatever. But the learning outcomes specifically sometimes just become a list of stuff they should know. 22 things they should know at the end, and that's why we're trying to do up to 5 things that you want them to be able to do. It's a massive difference. And the informal language on that, it's just they are exiting with learning outcomes. They just need to kind of tweak a bit, but it's just informally done.
And
There's one more question and then that. Okay.
Just on those learning outcomes, one of the things
Yeah.
that we are now starting to focus on is that within the Carpe Diem, I was going to say, no, set up. Within the Carpe Diem, they don't have learning outcomes. In Cairo, though, they do have what we are sometimes getting is program teams saying we need to do a Cairo for the program, and it pretty soon turns into actually no, we need to be looking at the map into the subject benchmark statements, and equally in areas such as business, we're now devising a model whereby if a module sits on multiple programs, you make a change to that module learning outcomes, that's going to have an impact across the other programs, so you can't have all the program leaders in there making the decision. So we've got a way around that. It's nice and visual. Whoever was talking about visualization and learning design, using Poplet, so something we're happy to share. But the idea is that we can then look at the mapping of individual module learning outcomes towards the program learning outcomes to look at cognitive load across, which is why I asked the question about the over-assessment potentially, and therefore making sure that we've got a nice balance and spread, if appropriate, of different styles of assessments across the area.
That the backpack of the student is full at the end, not your course doing everything. That's what I mean about the program director. They won't come for at least the first half day. You're not getting in. If the program director hasn't got buy-in on this, there's no point, because you're not going to be able to be, you're not equipped or in control of making decisions at a program level where your course will impact that. And you just need to know what's coming after and in front. It's a core course. All right, your year 1, semester 1 core course. There's so much you can do, and then after that, etc. There was one more, and then we will. I know you're standing up, so I'm standing between you and coffee. Well, thanks for the questions. I don't never get questions before coffee.
Can't stop it.
I think just coffee or just coffee. No.
In my unit, with smart cognitive technology, we tailored our workshops to address the learning outcomes. And as part of learning design. And what we've done is we're doing a skills development timeline. So basically, we come up with skills, particular skills that we will develop, and that's one of the main activities. So we can use that when we do the storyboard, but also they take down and they write the learning outcomes. So one of the main aims of the workshop is to have module based right there.
I mean, if it's a review or even a development that's been validated, I ask them to send me, obviously, in the free elder, they're sending me the documents, the learning outcomes. I can see them, I can see. But many do comment saying we need help with them. Others are just good. MSc Clinical Education, the first one I ran that I said I lost the whole day on just awfulness. It was really bad. But they were colleagues I trusted and they came back day 2. is because I was teaching them to suck at the MSc Critical Education and Learning Outcomes were perfect. They are teachers, they were perfect. And they hadn't asked me to hammer it. And all we were doing was keep hammering at these things that they were taught. Instead of getting on the storyboards, which is actually what they needed to completely change their course pace and workload for learn because they're moving daily, etc., etc. So that's the issue. If they come with their learning outcomes, that's fine. Or they think they've got them, it's changing. But they're not far off. Once you've made the informal learning outcomes, the map onto SCQF, it's just a thing to do after. It's like, yeah, make it that language, but these workshops with the nice catering, they're hard work. Nobody observes. Everyone is active, and they're fun and enjoyable too. There's a space. And when you read out SCQF level 11 documents and those kind of words, they mean nothing. What do they mean? And no wonder they turn to me and say, "Will you just give me 5? I've told you everything I can tell you in mission statement, look and feel, and everything else. We've gone over this and over this. Can you now just make 5 for me?" Why wouldn't you? You've done it all. So that's been the hardest one. So that's the massive difference between that and Carpe Diem. Is what I think the stage is, and I've added in much more on assessment feedback. But that's. There was a couple more, but we're having coffee. You find me, I'm here all day, and that's plenty for me.
If we have 50 minutes break coffee, so please be back in 5 past. There's an area also where you